Good morning, and we're in chapter 11 of 2 Samuel, and we'll get right into it with up here in the corner. What do we know about the consequences of David's sins? So, David, to this point, has been quite remarkable, actually, but obviously, from the heading and from what we're reading here, that he does have something, and what we read yesterday, seriously wrong, and that is this sin. President James E. Faust taught, "History is full of examples of men who were gifted and able, but who, in a moment of weakness, threw away their promising lives. King David is a tragic example. As a youth, he was handsome, brave, and full of faith. He slew the frightening giant Goliath. He became king. He had everything a man could desire, yet when he saw Bathsheba, he wanted her even though she was another man's wife. He had her husband Uriah the Hittite sent to the front of the hottest battle so that he would be killed. Uriah died in battle, and David married Bathsheba. As a consequence of this evil deed, David lost his spiritual inheritance. For all the good David accomplished, much of it was negated because he allowed himself to succumb to a serious personal flaw. David eventually recognized the seriousness of his sins and felt sincere anguish and desire for forgiveness, yet his actions yielded serious consequences that affected him and his children. Although David had fallen from his exaltation because he had planned Uriah's death, the Lord promised David that his soul would not be left in hell or spirit prison. So quite a big consequence, and we might not have something as serious as murder, to worry about, or even adultery, but think of sins that you might have and what the consequences might. And the one thing that I get from these readings, after we go through these, look at what David does. He doesn't just go, well, that's it. I've sinned, so it doesn't matter, and I might as well just continue. He tries to make amends on every side that he can the rest of his life. Remember Saul, on the other hand, he just spiraled down further and further. Well, David realizes what he's done and tries to repair whatever. He can't bring someone back from the dead or anything like that, but he can do all he can for the Lord, and we'll see that probably as we go along. And it came to pass the year was expired at the time the kings go forth to battle. Now, I don't know if this, I've read and reread this, and I'm not sure if that means there's a certain time, which might mean it was a time when it wasn't too hot, it wasn't too rainy, but what you get most from this on the outside is that kings went forth to battle. In other words, the kings led the battle. Saul did, David did even, but this time David sent Joab and his servants with him and all Israel, and they destroyed the children of Ammon and besieged Rabbah, but David tarried still at Jerusalem. He decided he doesn't need to go. He's above it now. Or I don't know, something like that. And it came to pass in the eventide that David arose from off his bed and walked upon the roof of the king's house. And so this is when he should have been in bed in the first place, and he rose and left his bed. And from the roof he saw a woman washing herself, and the woman was very beautiful to look upon. So far, nothing is wrong, and you can watch the videos and you can see what how this plays out in the Come Follow Me. And David sent and inquired after the woman, and one said, Is this not Bathsheba, the daughter of Elam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? And I think their names are important here. Daughter of the covenant. And as far as we know, she was living up to that. So far. And Uriah sorry, I did that wrong, was Jehovah is my light. And I think it's interesting that these two were faithful people, according to their names. And from what we can see, in fact, Uriah seems to be extremely faithful. So we read on. And David sent messengers and took her, and she came unto him, and he lay with her, for she was purified from her uncleanness, and she returned unto her house. And the woman conceived and sent and told David, and said, I am with child. And David sent to Joab, saying, Send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent Uriah to David. When Uriah was come unto him, David demanded of him how Joab did, and how the people did, and how the war prospered. So he's talking back and forth. He knows, he must know him somewhat, or he's getting to know him very quickly, and makes the pretense that he wants to know about the war that Uriah has went off in. And David said unto Uriah, Go down to thy house, and wash thy feet. And Uriah departed out of the king's house, and there followed him a mess of meat from the king. And if you look, I think that has a present portion of food, a present of a portion of food. So he's saying, here, take some food as well. He's trying to get him in a good mood, basically, I guess. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord, and went not to his own house, down to his house. This is his faithfulness, both to David and to his fellow soldiers and things. And when they had told David, saying, Uriah went not down to his house, David said unto Uriah, Camest thou not from thy journey? Why didst thou not go down to thy house? And Uriah said unto David, The ark and Israel and Judah abide in tents, and my lord Joab and the servants of my lord are encamped in open fields. Shall I then go into my house to eat and to drink and to lie with my wife? As thou livest, and as thy soul liveth, I will not do this thing. He's saying, if they're suffering, I don't want to have all these things around me. I should be with them and suffer as they do, even if it's here on your doorstep. And David said to Uriah, Tarry here today also, and tomorrow I will let thee depart. So Uriah abode in Jerusalem that day and the morrow. And when David had called him, he did eat and drink before him, and he made him drunk. And that evening even he went out to lie on his bed with the servants of the Lord, but went not to his house. Again, it didn't work. And it came to pass in the morning that David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. And he wrote a letter saying, Set Uriah in the forefront of the hottest battle, and retire ye from him, that he may be smitten and die. This, again, I mentioned this with Saul, when Saul did this. And Saul said, Thus shall ye say to David, the king, Desire not any dowry, but 100 foreskins of the Philistines, to be avenged of the king's enemies. But Saul thought to make David fall by the hand of the Philistines. You see this tie? He's doing almost exactly the same thing that was tried on him. And it came to pass that Joab observed the city and assigned Uriah into a place where he knew the valiant men were the ones that were going to be more difficult. He doesn't know that he's trying to win a battle. And the men of the city went out and fought with Joab, and there fell some of the people of the servants of David, and Uriah the Hittite died also. Then Joab sent and told David all the things concerning the war, and charged the messenger, saying, When thou hast made an end of telling the matters of war unto the king, if it so be that the king's wrath arise, and he say unto thee, Wherefore approach ye so high unto the city? When ye did fight, know ye not that they would shoot from the wall? Basically, and I think it explains it here in the footnote, but basically, Joab had not followed the king's plan. He's supposed to put him on the front lines, but what he'd done is he sent Uriah and his men right up to the city gate wall, and he feared David might be angry because so many were killed with Uriah. He knew that Uriah was supposed to die, but he's afraid that the king would be worried about how the others died. He smote Abimelech. Now this is interesting because he smote Abimelech, the son of Jebutheth. Now if you read that story, Abimelech tries to take over a city, and he comes to the city wall, and he comes so close that a woman throws a millstone out the window, trying to protect her own, or off the wall or whatever, and it hits Abimelech and kills him. And that's sort of what he's saying. I kind of did the same thing that Abimelech did, and I didn't learn. That's what we learned not to do. Did a woman cast a piece of a millstone upon him from the wall that he died in Thebes? Why went ye nigh to the wall? Then say thou, thy servant Uriah the Hittite is dead. He's saying, if it seems like he's mad about the people that died, just let him know that Uriah died, because at least he knows that was the intention, was that Uriah died. So the messengers went and came and showed David all that Joab had sent him for. And the messengers said to David, Surely the men prevailed against us, and came out unto us into the field, and we were upon them, even unto the entering of the gate. And the shooters shot from off the wall upon thy servants, and some of the king's servants be dead, and thy servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also. And then David said unto the messengers, Thus shalt thou say unto Joab, Let not this thing displease thee, for the sword devoureth one as well as another. And make thy battle more strong against the city, and overthrow it, and encourage him. So he's kind of saying, well, it was an accident, really. And Uriah died, so it's all good here. He's trying to give encouragement. He's also seeming a little bit on the flippant side to the lives of those that are dying in war. And when the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah, her husband, was dead, she mourned for her husband. And when the mourning was past, David sent and fetched her to his house, and she became his wife, and bare him a son. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord. It's just one of those stories that's not the nicest thing. David has totally lost who he is in this one incident. And remember that there is this balance, and hopefully by the end of the week we'll see this balance where now this is the low point, and maybe we'll see some blessings later this week. We've already seen a high point anyway in David's life. Here he is, faithful and true, and becomes a great king, and then he drops from that. And we'll talk about that more tomorrow.